Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another mildly interesting video. You know a common complaint that a lot of anime fans and weebs get is that they always just spend their time inside their rooms doing nothing but watching anime or reading manga or all that kind of other stuff. So today, we're going to be bringing this outside just to prove that we're not all shut-ins. Now I know that the weather conditions out here are not that ideal. But screw it, we're going to do it anyways. Weathering with You, also known as Makoto Shinkai's second big hit after the amazing Your Name, whose plot twist I will not be able to forget for such a long time. Like me, a lot of people discovered this movie thanks to the success of the former, and thus the expectations were high. Now, I wouldn't say that it quite reaches the highs that Your Name was able to achieve, but it's still great in its own right. For one, the visuals and soundtrack are still phenomenal. For such a supernatural concept told in this animated medium, the film seems to be really serious about grounding these characters and the world that they live in reality with how everything looks. That despite the inherent supernatural concept at the center of this movie, these characters are real and meant to be relatable, as is the world that they live in. A regular Tokyo, but basically with rain DLC. But despite the constant rain of Tokyo and the gray and the gloom that it brings around the town, mashed with the concrete jungle that is Tokyo, it still looks amazing. He managed to make the color gray look really good. And I also want to point out the soundtrack. It's ethereal, otherworldly, and unique. Is There Anything Love Can Do is still one of the most beautiful anime soundtracks I've ever heard, and the falling sequence, or as some people call it, the free falling sequence, combined with the soundtrack of Grand Escape afterwards, is an amazing blend of soundtrack and animation. When the story delves into the otherworldliness of it all, it can really immerse you in with the realistic lighting and bright, lush, detailed landscapes in background. Topped off with a great soundtrack, it remains a favorite scene in the animation I've seen so far. So all in all, this is a Makoto Shinkai film. Of course the visuals and the audios are going to be amazing. The visuals really immerse you inside this strange yet familiar world, whether it's the gray gloominess of the rain of Tokyo, the blue or yellow sunshine and the skies that finally burst through the clouds, even some of the interiors of the characters' homes, they all feel very immersive. And they are all accompanied by amazing sound design and soundtrack to perfectly elevate those scenes even further than what they could have been before. And the characters are relatable. Sort of. To be honest, our male protagonist, Hodaka, has the clearest character arc in the story. We meet him having escaped this rural island to go to the big city of Tokyo to start a new life there, with everything turning upside down when he meets Hina, the Sunshine Girl. It is very much a coming-of-age story for Hodaka, but I don't really remember Hina getting as much of a big of a character arc as he did. Ultimately, she's just used to serve Hodaka's character arc, which I rate a congratulations out of 10. But that's not to say the characters are flat and forgettable. Far from it, they have special things about them that flesh them out. The two news people that Hodaka end up working with in the beginning are implied to have some troubles with society, hence their new business venture. Hina also has some difficulties paying for her and her little brother's lives thanks to their mom dying, thus encouraging her to take the Sunshine Girl gigs, which, if you have seen the substance, you may already know where this is going. I don't know why I said that. I just love the substance. But regardless, it is still Hodaka's character arc that I'm more drawn towards, because it was pretty much the only clear one that I remember. That's not really an issue by all means. I still love all the characters and they're all endearing in their own ways and sometimes even more interesting than Hodaka and his journey. Like, all of them are likable, but it's really just what it is. Hodaka is the only person in this movie with an actual character arc from start to finish. Everyone else just gets little quirks of their own. Now let's get to the actual story. Hodaka meets Hina, and as the two get closer, strange things start to happen throughout Tokyo and also to Hina herself. Now throughout the movie, we get scenes and snippets of even stranger occurrences happening throughout Tokyo, which did pique my interest. But ultimately, it doesn't go anywhere aside from firmly setting the mythology that this movie is steeped in. It's immersive, yes, but story-wise, it doesn't really go anywhere besides helping explain the weird imagery towards the falling or the free-falling sequence, which I will not spoil because you have to go into this blind to be blown away. They really animated this part very well. So instead, let's go to the character journey that Hodaka goes in this coming-of-age story. I would say it's pretty well done. We get enough hints that his life on the island that he was living on was suffocating, which would explain why he's moving to a big city trying to start a new life over there. But he also has to grow up along the way because he's dragged himself into something bigger. First evidence not with the supernatural aspect of the Sunshine Girl, but through a gun, in a trash can. See, the movie takes its time to establish Hodaka before fleshing out Hina even more and making the two become romantic partners. And I want to step aside and mention that I really liked the romantic aspect. It was built realistically, the progression felt natural, to the hotel scene with the reveal of what's happening to Hina hitting me quite hard. It's been built up to be believable enough for me that the third act played over Is There Anything Love Can Do with Grand Escape had me invested throughout. I cared enough about the two of them that I wanted Hodaka to succeed. And I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen because it's the third act, and at this point on, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to censor everything if we want to keep this review spoiler free. But anyways, back to establishing Hodaka. We follow him throughout, which can feel boring because we came here for the supernatural romance. In contrast, Your Name had a variety of sequences and scenes to at least keep it interesting. But the color palette of the first act is also mostly gray and gloomy, which does make sense considering the setting and where Hodaka came from. I didn't really find it boring, however. The character work was interesting enough, and I was fed with the promise of girls who can change the weather. So despite the boring setup, his history and what he is trying to do in Tokyo are interesting enough that it keeps me going, okay, at some point, we've got to get to the Sunshine Girl. We'll just keep it going over here. And it was entertaining enough to see on its own. Now, yes, we already know where this kind of story is going to be. We've seen this many times before, and there's not that much variation or subversion being done over here. And another issue, and probably for me the biggest issue with this movie, is that there is no clear end goal, or what we would normally call a MacGuffin. It is 8 a.m. and I could really use one right now. So that means we don't necessarily know when he has achieved this goal. It's pretty hard to tell. That was a similar issue with Kiki's Delivery Service for me, which I have touched on before. But that movie still works so much better for me because of the specificity of the subject matter that it touched on. Independence akin to international university students except Total Witchcraft and DoorDash Beta. $30 delivery fee? Whereas this one just feels more like a general character study. It probably could have been more, maybe if they had also looked at it at a more specific angle on this kind of genre. For example, using Horaka's first gig as a journalist, and a shady one at that, which is how he learns of the Sunshine Girl and decides to do a piece on her. Maybe they could have done something with that angle, like building the relationship between the two, only for Hina to find out that he's written an article all about her to publish her for money. How would that impact their relationship? Or maybe they could have done something else. But instead, all of this is sort of thrown to the side because the movie just needed something for him to do in the beginning, and once that's finished, say bye-bye because it's love time. That journalism sequence almost pretty much just exists just so that there is a reason that Horaka knows about Hina, and the two can fall in love with each other, and then we get the love and the tragedy and all that kind of stuff. And I do want to reiterate that Horaka and Hina are well designed, so are all of the other side characters, to the point that some of them are actually more interesting than our main protagonists. But unfortunately, this is a pitfall that the movie just can't seem to avoid. But I would say that overall, it's a great anime film. Amazing visuals and sound accompany a well-done character arc. Yes, there's not that much of a strong story going on. It's really more based on the character, and you can tell where the character journey is going to be going. But the character work is still interesting enough, and the romance flows very, very naturally that you become invested in the third act, and are thus rewarded with one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in an anime. So overall, it's definitely a good watch, a good movie. I think if there is one thing that we can take away from this movie is that considering how rainy this Tokyo is, we probably should be pretty grateful about the fact that there's not that much rain. I mean, this can't possibly get any more worse. We got strong gusts of wind going around, the clouds are gray, I got my umbrella up. It possibly can't get any worse than this, right? Well, I think I should get the hell out of here.